For most of my life, my parents and I bought clothes from shops in the mall and around Toronto. We never thought about how the clothes were made or what would happen to them after I grew out of the clothes and we had to get rid of them. Sometimes we gave them to other people and sometimes we just threw them out. Now that I know how wasteful my clothes are and were, I've been trying to find ways to buy more sustainable clothing. But I haven't had much luck finding something that I can afford or that is truly sustainable. There was always another option, thrifting. It's something that I never did before because I was being a bit superficial. I didn't want to buy secondhand clothes, and I thought I was better than that, I guess. I got over this ego, and this past weekend I went to a local thrift store, and I can gladly say that I was successful. I'm going to tell you how that went and why I think I stood in my own way to not do something. We're going to talk about that on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I am your host, Andrew Lewin. This is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to act for or to live for a better ocean by taking action. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about taking action. And this is a personal story of mine that I kind of had last weekend, and it was a lot of fun, to be honest. Over my lifetime, there are a lot of things that I never thought about. I was a kid. Growing up as a teenager in Toronto, you just do things as things are done. You go play hockey, you go to school during the day, play hockey at night, hockey on the weekend, soccer in the summer, baseball in the summer. That was essentially my life. I had great friends. I had a very privileged life and not super wealthy, but also, middle class and, two parents who loved me and I always had clothes on my back and always had food to eat and everything like that. But over time, I realized some of the things I did weren't very environmentally friendly. Just thinking about my lunches that I had every day. I would pack 2 sandwiches. Yeah, I ate a lot as a kid. 2 sandwiches in Ziploc bags or saran wrap that would get thrown out after every time I ate. Then, other stuff that was not necessarily in containers. It'd be everything that would be disposable. Basically going in the garbage. Recycling wasn't really big back then, if at all. So we just threw everything in the garbage. Plastic bags would be thrown in the garbage that I would take in my lunch. I never had, in high school especially, I never had like a lunchbox. I never wanted a lunchbox in high school. It wasn't cool. So I, not even just a container or a bag with containers, nothing. It was just wasteful stuff. And obviously I regret that, and now I take everything wherever I go for lunches. I take a reusable bag, or I'll take like a cooler or something, and the kids all have their reusable containers and so forth. And so we're living better now, but back then it was really, really wasteful. And the same thing with clothing. We bought what was affordable and we bought what was accessible. I was very fortunate to grow up in Toronto where there were a lot of shops. There were a lot of malls that had a lot of shops. We had like the Gap, we had Eddie Bauer, we had, we had Zellers, we had Simpsons, we had Kmart, we had all these different department stores, the Hudson Bay, like the Bay, Sears, all these things in Canada that we could buy stuff and for a good price, like probably for cheaper than it should have been. Never knew, how it was made, who was making these things, was it ethical, was it sustainable, what was the material, all that kind of stuff. Never even looked at it, to be honest. Until I got to after university, even further after that, I started to realize that clothes can be very unsustainable. Jeans, as I covered before, you would just throw them out when you were done. Sometimes you would reuse them, especially when we were kids. If you had a hole in your knee, they would patch them up and stuff like that. So things were you cared about it more. But then at some point, clothes became so cheap that you would just throw it out. You wouldn't, and you would buy a new one because it wasn't worth putting a patch on. Or that's what it seems anyway. Or maybe people just didn't want to, some people just didn't want to put the effort in. I don't know if that still goes on. I rarely see people with patches. And so a lot of stuff gets thrown out. So I started looking around as I started to get more and more aware of this and realized like, wow, I've been doing this earth, this planet dirty, this ocean dirty. And so I need to clean my act up. And so over the past like 5-6 years, I've been trying to find places that are sustainable. I'm not somebody who's all into fashion or need a lot of clothes. I just want clothes that will fit. I want clothes that, which is mostly on me, of course. I want clothes that will look nice. I can, take them. I can go to work with some of them. I can, hang out with my friends with others, or just at home with others. And that's what I want to do as I go through life. But I don't want to buy clothes every day, every week, every month. I buy clothes like every few years. So, when I first started going, I'm like, well, I'll buy some that are a little bit more, expensive, because they're going to last long. They're going to last like 4 or 5 years. And so I'd only have to shop 4 or 5 years, maybe buying something, the odd item here and there. But then I had a lot of trouble finding something that was accessible, that wasn't necessarily online. Most of the stuff is online. They're startup companies, so things are very expensive in certain times. And so, when eco-friendly or sustainable clothing is sort of, I remember one. It was Pharrell. Pharrell, the recording artist, the producer. He's a genius. He is, he came out with these. I guess it was like recycled clothes. It was reused clothes, and they were taking plastics from the ocean and breaking them down and reusing them, making clothes out of them and selling them for a ton of money. I was like, oh, this is, when I first found out about it, I was like, this is great. I'm going to go on the store front and on the website and be like, I'll order from it. It's like $300 for a pair of jeans. I'm like, that's insane. I can't afford that. Nor would I ever want to pay that much for clothes. And so, that wasn't, obviously that's an extreme version, but a lot of the other places were very expensive. And I just wasn't ready I just couldn't shell out that money for clothes. So I had to continue, or actually I stopped buying clothes for a long time. And so it was difficult from a accessibility standpoint, looking at other, shops that would come into our malls here in Burlington, where I live now. They have like men's shops and stuff, and you go in, you're hoping that they're sustainable, and their clothes it's very difficult to tell because there's so many materials being integrated into a shirt, pants, or slacks, or whatever that might be. And so it's difficult to find that. So, it's hard to find a place that's, I can look at the clothes, or I can order the clothes, and they would be sustainable, and it would be easy to get, and it would be affordable. Then, I remember a number of years ago, I did an episode where I had produced an episode that was talked about thrifting and reusable clothes and who does it. I'd love to hear from somebody. And somebody from the audience reached out, and I actually interviewed her because she was a marine scientist who went thrifting all the time. She bought she bought secondhand clothing all the time, and she loved it. So she kind of gave us tips on what to do, and I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I couldn't do it. And I really think I was thinking about it last week, and I was like, I think it's an ego thing. Because when I think about it, I think of some secondhand stores where I'm just like, it smells kind of funny. I don't want to have to worry about, it being dirty or anything like that. And this is times where I barely stepped in a secondhand clothing store. So I'm being, a lot of it was being ignorant. And so finally this past week, I was like, I'm going to go find, it was a nice day. February, it was ridiculously warm. It was 7 degrees centigrade. It was like, that's too warm here in Ontario in February. And I took my kids. They want to come, and we're like, okay, let's go thrift shopping, because for the kids, thrifting is the thing to do. And so down there, this place that was in here, it's been in there for a while, and I've been wanting to go in for a while. And so it's 2 floors. The top floor is women's and girls' clothing. The bottom floor is men's and boys' clothing. And it wasn't a ton of clothing, to say the least. Had options in each size, multiple options in each size, whether it be a shirt, whether it be T-shirts, dress shirts, suits, pants, jeans, all that kind of stuff. And so I started looking around, and I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. I couldn't find the pants that I wanted, which is why I went there, because I needed new jeans and new pants. And so I started to look around, and I was getting a little frustrated, but then I started looking at some of the shirts, and some of the shirts were really nice. And some from like some name brand stores that I would have bought, but I couldn't really buy because I'm not sure if you've noticed, things are expensive, really, really, really expensive. And so like going to like somewhere like a mall to buy a shirt, like a dress shirt for like work, is very expensive. Things have gone up. A lot of it's over $75 to $100. And I'm just like, am I really willing to pay this money at this point in time when everything else is expensive? Food's expensive. Everything's expensive. And so I looked around and I was like, the shirts, like dress shirts were, $9, $12. At one point it was $15. And the regular price was like $75, $80, $100. I'm saving a ton of money here. So I grab a bunch of clothes and then I find out that there was a sale on t-shirts. Like you buy one, you get the other half off. Perfect. And that's like, again, $5, $9, $12, $15, it didn't matter. And I was like, this is great. And the place, I know it sounds stupid, it smelled nice. It was clean. The people were super nice, super helpful. I got a change room. I tried on clothes. Some fit me well. Some didn't fit me well. Others, I was like, you know what? It's $5. I'm going to buy. And my kids came down. They had a bunch of clothes, super, super inexpensive, nice clothes. They went in, tried it on. We came out. We spent $109 and Canadian. And it was, I think we had like 15 items, including dress shirts. They had tops, they had bottoms, they had pants, and we came out a success. Like I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do this all the time. I found out that thrift store is moving. They don't know where yet, but they have to move. So hopefully they'll stay in Burlington and we'll be able to frequent that shop again. But that's just like the story for me in a thrift shop. I felt super happy coming out. I was elated. I was just coming outside. I was like, I just bought clothes for under $100 and it was great. I didn't find the jeans. So I dropped the kids off. I went over to the mall. I bought jeans from like Levi's and I spent the same amount, actually a little bit more for jeans, and I had to buy a belt. So way more. And I was just like, man, I wish those two items were in the thrift store because I would have bought them in a second. And so, it goes to like in the times that we live today, thrifting seems to be really, really great. One thing I should mention is I wore the both tops to work this week and I got compliments on both the ones, right? They're like, oh, that fits you nicely. That does well. And so I'm like, this is great. Like, just positive reinforcement that I guess I needed. And it was inexpensive. It was easily accessible. It was like 2 minutes away from my house, a 2-minute drive. And I had a great time doing it. The people were super nice. Everything was just out there. I just wish there was more clothes. And so it's a reminder that a lot of us, we donate our clothes a lot to charity, which I have no problem, but you can sell back your clothes and get money to buy new clothes. You can get suits, you can get shirts that you can go to a conference with. And I think to have, a secondhand, like to be able to buy clothes secondhand, there's advantages to it. Those clothes might be wasteful. They might not be sustainable, but they're being reused. So we are doing that in the reuse category of the recycling process. And I think that's important. It's not the best, but it's important. And until other shops and other product lines come out that are more sustainable, then we can start buying them more and that are more affordable. And I think that's going to be an important step. But I feel as though this is like a good second step or a good like step up to that platform where we become more and more sustainable. And so I'm happy with what I got from it. And I'll probably do it again when I'm ready to buy again because it just makes sense, right? It may not be perfect at certain times and you may not hit luck like I did this past time, but it just makes sense to do it that way. It takes a little bit of more time because you're looking through things, but to be honest, it took me I was in the store for maybe half hour, which is a lot for me. I'll be honest. I'm not a big shopper. I don't like looking around. I like going in, buying, and coming out. And that's what I did. And so, I think a lot of us, including myself as a prime case in this story, we have these preconceptions of, what some of the things to do that are more sustainable are, right? Before I bought my electric vehicle, I thought it was too expensive. And then I started looking at other cars and the ones that I wanted in the EVs, and I was like, okay, this is actually affordable. So when it was time to get a new car, I was able to purchase the car that I wanted. And it was an EV. So now I know that I'm being more sustainable than I was with a gas vehicle. Are EVs perfect? Probably not. But they're better than what I was driving before, right? A gas-powered vehicle. And so doing the same thing, one step at a time. You just continue. You look at something in your life and you're like, I need something new, or I need something to change this, or I need to replace this. And you go and you look at the options. You spend a little bit more time looking at the options, asking around, doing a little bit more research. And by doing that and by acting on it, you end up saving the ocean. So the faster we do this, the faster we get out of our own way, to get out of our own sort of egos. And I say this including myself, of course, and saying, hey, I'm just going to buy something that's new. I think we are in a society right now that you can buy things for new, feel good about yourself, and not really worry. There's no worries around it. Although we just don't see what the damage we're causing. There's clothes for $5-6 out there that are new, that they can't be made properly. They're not ethical. They're not sustainable. And we just buy it because it's new and we feel good. It gives us that endorphin rush. And it's just not worth it for the planet, right? So I think we need to start getting into, looking at items and products and services that are more sustainable, and start supporting that where we can, what we can, and what we can do. Don't feel guilty if you can't afford something or you don't have access to something. We'd all love to be able to afford everything and access everything, that is sustainable, but it's just not always the case. And so you just have to almost take it in every stage as a different stage, and every item as a different item, and doing your research and stuff. So it takes time, but the more we start, the better it is. And you never know. You just might get something out of it that's really cool, and you might have a great experience like I did and feel great about yourself afterwards. So I'd love to hear your stories of how you're becoming more sustainable, how you're living a life for a better ocean. Let me know. DM me on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean, all one word, at How to Protect the Ocean. Or you can email me at speakupforblue.com, and you just go to the Contact Us page, fill out the form, it goes right to my personal email. I just want to thank you so much for listening to this story and sort of my experience. I'm looking forward to hearing your experiences. You've been listening to the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.